Tourism to Japan is not going to stop coming, despite the fact that two countries and Japan's neighbors have been at disagreements politically for a long time, many, many years. That doesn't stop people from traveling to one or the other country, because the vast majority of people, and this doesn't include just Japan's neighbors, don't care about political reasons for travel. They have their own reasons for doing it. So recently, and I saw this article hit just 7 hours ago, and coupled with a comment that I received, hold on a second, a couple of, actually yesterday, the commenter deleted the comment, but it was very much from a neighboring country's point of view that, how do you like this? Tourists are going to stop coming to your country. And I'm like, well, really? I don't think that at all. And I dug deep into this and I saw the article and it was fascinating. And I'm gonna tell you why our neighboring country of China and Korea and all the other ones are going to stop coming to Japan, because the government says that, but Japan will take a hit. Several major China travel agencies halt trips for sales for trips to Japan. Japan-bound trips. Industry sources said Monday, after the Japanese government urged its citizens not to visit neighboring country last week amid the escalating diplomatic row over Taiwan. It's a very sensitive topic for China. The government and people's private times in China is starting to clash. And we're seeing comments on this channel from people from all over the world. I want to give you some perspective on actually what's happening here. Some hotels in Japan, some have seen some cancellations. The impact of the call has spread to the entertainment industry. It's not as big as you think or they want to make it out to be, but the Chinese tourists account for a large share of foreign visitors to Japan. This is true, but these kinds of comments don't help with the increase, but I don't think people are going to cancel their trips as a result of it unless the tourist agencies do that on the Chinese side. The bilateral ties were triggered by Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's recent remarks on Japan's potential response to a contingency in Taiwan, which is, the government stance, and China has their stance. A major state-run travel agency based in Beijing said it stopped arranging personal and group tours to Japan on Sunday, citing the current situation. I'm not sure why a government should halt tour. It seems real thin-skinned to me why a government should halt tours to a neighboring country just because of a political disagreement on rhetoric that one of the leaders had said. But this is one of the instruments that they use in diplomacy, except it deals with people's everyday lives. So you either agree with us or you don't. We're going to stop sending tourists to you. But that's not how the free system works. That's not how the travel system works. And the majority of people in China feel this as well. So there's quite an interesting, it's quite an interesting story. The major state-run travel agencies based in Beijing stopped it. Okay. The agency said that it also halted visa application services and will refund customers who already purchased Japan travel packages at no cost. Its website did not show any travel-related. So it seems like the government is forcing the travel agencies to cancel these trips. But the feeling amongst Chinese people, especially my friends in China that I keep in touch with, is there's no ill will towards Japan. They don't really care about this. This is this current situation faced by two countries. It's not about people's daily lives. A private tourism company in the capital said it stopped receiving new customers for Japan-bound trips. Between Saturday and September this year, about 31.65 million foreigners visited Japan. With roughly 7.49 million of them coming from China. That is a significant number of people, 42% from the previous year, and the most by any country anywhere in the world coming to Japan. They're coming from our neighbor China. 2024, 6.98. So we've already exceeded the amount of tourists from China that came to Japan. A day after the travel alert was issued, on Friday, major Chinese airlines said that they will allow passengers to cancel or change Japan-bound flights free of charge, ramping this up. That data is pretty convincing here. In issuing the warning, China's foreign minister said provocative comments by the Japan leader have caused the atmosphere surrounding people-to-people exchanges to deteriorate seriously, posing this has nothing to do with the Chinese or the Japanese people. It's a political maneuver. Chinese foreign minister said defended the travel alert as completely reasonable. What does that even mean? Saying at press conference on Monday that there have been some extreme and threatening remarks against China from Japan right-wingers. There are extreme and threatening remarks from every single winger in every single country. Some Chinese people feel an affinity for Japan were upset by the alert. This is where the article changes, which is very much questioning the government's assessment of public safety in the neighboring countries. Over the weekend, long lines formed at airline counters at a Beijing airport as many people prepared to depart for Japan. A Chinese man looked forward to a fishing trip, said, "I made plans to travel to Japan half a year ago and cannot change them at the last minute." Another traveler, a man in his 40s who works for a technology company, dismissed the travel warning, saying he believes Japan is very safe. A Chinese woman in her 50s who lives in Japan said, "I don't care about the government recommendation." It seems like it's more than a recommendation. Some in the Japanese tourism industry expressed wariness of the actions could lead to a drop in profits, with some hotels already reporting cancellations from Chinese customers. Imperial Hotel Limited said it had received cancellations or postponements by some Chinese companies, some that had reserved rooms or parties, but it has yet to see any blowback from individual reservations. The effects have been limited to a breakdown of customers by country spread out. So this is not going to impact Japan really, which runs a wide range of Japanese-style pubs. It could be affected by the travel restrictions if they're enforced thoroughly. I don't even know what that means. Basically, for Chinese tourists, Japan is one of the most popular overseas destinations, along with other countries, South Korea, Thailand, and Malaysia. Japan spent a lot of money here. And like the story is very important because it really does, it plays into why people come to Japan in the first place. It has nothing to do with the politics. That's not why people come or not come to any country. Americans still travel to China, and Chinese tourists to the United States, very, very high. There's lots of Chinese tourists coming from China to go to the United States and vice versa. It's quite incredible that we would think in the media, at least the media portraying this as, this is going to change the travel industry. Chinese tourists are not going to go anywhere because if you have a disagreement with their government, the tourists aren't going to come to your country anymore. I don't think even the government in China really has a lot of power in determining where tourists can go. However, they can steer and push a big vessel into that direction, and it does have an impact, especially for industries in the tourism industry here in Japan that rely heavily on Chinese tourism, which is a great percentage of people. However, it doesn't seem like the majority of... Do you add more plants into your office? This one's plastic, that one's real. And that hat over there is from the Nebuta Matsuri in Aomori. That's definitely plastic. They don't last very long because if I'm not around to water it. I want to go over some of the reasons why. I think this is really important because China is a very powerful country. All my friends in China, they absolutely love Japan. We hear in the media all the time about the disagreements about World War II, about these issues, about how kids are taught in school. And these are valid issues, but they don't determine why a person comes to Japan. Number one, politics and personal life or travel decisions, they don't meet. Travelers separate government-level disputes from their own experiences. Even during diplomatic flare-ups, this is just a flare-up. Even during diplomatic flare-ups, Chinese tourists are going to be coming here, especially the ones that booked individually and didn't do group tours. It's the group tourism industry, which is very much like a pipeline. And I want to be honest with you, a lot of these Chinese tourism agencies, they have a pipeline where they try to keep the money as much as possible within their agency. So a lot of this money doesn't really get out unless these tourists go shopping or get out of the pipeline that is this group tour, right? Chinese tourists consider Japan safe, clean, and high quality, which is why they come. It's also a very close flight, and it is relatively cheap compared to, let's say, the United States or another country in the West, where the currency is much stronger. Japanese yen is weak. Even for the Chinese that are visiting, the choice to come to Japan is pretty easy. Chinese tourists consider Japan safe, clean, and high quality. Personal interest in the culture, food. They can read the kanji. They like that there's a real connection with the cuisine as well, based on rice and miso soup and use of chopsticks, for example. There's a lot of synergy there. Personal interest in culture, food, shopping outweighs political headlines. So despite the fact that the government is saying this, I want everybody in the West to realize that tourists that are coming here to Japan aren't like banned from coming here to Japan. This is the equivalent of a government tourist warning or alert. That is a dramatic flare-up from comments made by the prime minister. This happens every time a prime minister goes to Yasukuni Shrine. It goes to anything that is very touchy in the political relationship. But I don't think that Japan can have a international policy based on the feelings of another country. You have to do it based on what is common sense. I don't know if I'm sure the prime minister thought about her comments before she made them, but 3 weeks ago, a ships went through the Tsunagaru Strait between Hokkaido and Aomori without warning. Chinese warships, the Coast Guard? The Coast Guard still has weapons on board, went through Japanese water between Hokkaido and Aomori, and they were escorted by planes, helicopters, and other Japanese ships to get the heck out. It's just weird. There's a lot of tension going on, and most of it is coming from one side of it. I can understand why these comments were perhaps made in light of that, especially since that ship went through. Like, think about it. You have a Chinese ship going, through Alaska down to the United States and cutting across your country. Imagine that. That's kind of what happened. It was on the news really big here in Japan. Hold on a second. I'm going to block off the sunlight. I didn't realize that the weather was going to change so quickly. It's supposed to be raining today. That's a lot better. But the majority of tourists separate it. I want to take some questions from you guys because there might be some in here. I know this doesn't have to do so much about tourism from America, but if Chinese tourists did stop coming to Japan, that might free up a lot of hotel rooms and stuff. There might be some deals as a result of that, which could be good, something good, but I don't think that's the case here. Yeah, but right now Japanese are trying to restrict tourists in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand. There's a YouTuber who took off his top, jump on car and dancing at a Lawson's near Mount Fuji. That's not going to help Patrick. It's nice to see you, by the way, Patrick. Yeah, I don't think that tourism, I don't think that they're making it harder to come in Japan. I think that they're trying to tighten down some of the laws and try to make sure that those kinds of people don't come into Japan. And I think that that's a good thing because they have been very loose about it for a very long time. I think that this is a bigger issue and probably one that I do in another episode next week. I don't want to do a lot of content on this kind of stuff, but I think it is very relevant because when you do come into Japan, you have to understand what's happening around you, especially the regional conflicts and the regional tensions play a part because these countries are quite north, in particular Kitachose, which is North Korea. But Japan and Korea, South Korea have had a lot of conflicts. A lot of political conflicts, and the tourism numbers do dip a little bit, but they don't stop from people from coming. They just are, disagreements, flare-ups that I think take generations to work out. But both countries are great places for international travel for each other because there is so much synergy within the culture. The media blows this up, guys. Yeah, I don't even have to tell you that. The media blows this up to a proportion where you think that Chinese people hate Japanese and Japanese hate Chinese people. It's the exact opposite. Japanese love Chinese cuisine, Chinese people. A lot of Japanese travel to China and vice versa. There's this free flow of culture and tourism is a very healthy and good thing. People don't stay; they go back home. I think that's one of the issues that Japan is trying to work out with a lot of other countries, by the way. But obviously, this kind of a flare-up, and it's a pretty big flare-up, is something that's going to impact tourism to Japan. At least the media wants you to think it is. But really, Japan is one of the most attractive destinations in Asia. It's very true that where else are they going to go? They could go to Thailand. There's a beautiful countries, Thailand, Singapore. They could go to India. They could go, but it's just a short flight to come to Japan. The food is good. The service is great. You get world-class service. Omotenashi, Chinese travelers consistently rate service in Japan above virtually all other destinations. Food culture, Chinese tourists absolutely love the food culture in Japan. Social media in China is filled with images and positivity on Japan. If you look at the government and you look at social media, what people are posting about Japan, it is overwhelmingly like 99% positive stuff. And then there's some political stuff depending on which social media you're using within China. Beautiful nature and clean urban environments. You can't walk around Tokyo and say that it's a dirty city. So I know some YouTubers might do that. Japan is changing, all this other stuff. That's all garbage. That's more garbage than actually walking the streets, which has no garbage. There might be a little bit of graffiti in some places, even an increasing amount, but it's like such a small amount of graffiti. Japan, and the cities in particular are super safe, and they're super easy to get around. Chinese tourists can read the kanji, despite the fact that the language is being better. They know pork and chicken and beef, and they can understand menus a little bit more. So it's a lot more of a comfortable destination for people to come. More and more Japanese are speaking English. Chinese speak Chinese, but more and more tourist destinations in Tokyo are speaking Chinese, not just English. So believe it or not, well, that's where the majority of the tourists coming from. So that's one of the major languages of the tourism industry within Japan. So when you say that the Japanese don't speak good English, well, maybe it's because most tourists are coming from China. But a lot of Chinese can speak English too, because they're the ones that are quite savvy and like to travel internationally. You have to speak English to travel internationally. So that makes English quite a practical language. The shopping in Japan is high quality goods. You don't get the rip-off stuff in Japan. It's very rare to find stuff like that. The electronics stores have real electronics. Even the SD cards, I've gotten fake SD cards from B&H, which is a major electronic supplier in New York and the United States. I've gotten fake SD cards from them. You will never get a fake SD card from Japan. It is like, that's why the price is always so much higher than the United States. There's no counterfeit stuff in there. So it's often cheaper than China, and it's also real. So you don't have any of that. And again, the proximity is so close. There's just so much to do. The nature is also wonderful. People take really good care of the country. The government message is strategic. It's really to reduce I'm over here on the side, group tours, advertising, amplify political narratives, but it's rarely a ban on individual visits. So despite the attention, tourism from China is not going to decrease. It's probably going to increase a little bit, but it's not going to go down to a number that's going to be devastating. However, Japanese still don't like any risk. It's a risk-averse country, so even the Japanese are going to play this up quite a bit, because to lose any tourist is a bad thing. I shop at B&H. Not once, not twice, but 3 times they sent me fake SD cards. And you know what? You know how I found out they were fake? Japanese customs found out they were fake. They sent me letters saying that B&H sent you fake SD cards, and they had to destroy them. And of course, B&H had to refund my money because I never received it. Even Federal Express, which sent it to me, said that the package didn't get through customs because it was fake. So B&H had to refund the money because they were selling fake SD cards. I don't know if they still do that, but it is pretty crazy that the customs is making sure that fake items don't come in. And I had no idea that B&H was selling fake stuff, because that's B&H. It's like an amazing electronics company that with a massive reputation behind it. At least I thought. So basically, Chinese tourists are not gonna not come here, and I think this goes for every other country. Like, if you were to cancel your trip to China because of a disagreement between the politics, that would be an issue, I think. I don't think a lot of people do that, because China is a beautiful country to go and visit. I've been to the Great Wall of China. I've been to Beijing many times. I've been to Chengdu and the koala. I've been to the panda sanctuary. Oh my goodness. One of the cutest places on earth is the panda sanctuary in China. I went there in the year 2001. This is, in the year 2000. This is 25 years ago. I don't think it's changed that much, but oh my goodness. I'd never seen so many pandas in one place before, and they're also cuddly and cute and doing funny things, and you can almost like you can get really close to the pandas there because there's so many of them, and everyone in China is super friendly. Like you get 25 years ago in particular when I was there, because this is a long time ago, you get the starers. They just stare at you because they don't see a lot of foreigners out in the countryside. Maybe it's changed a little bit, but you get the starers. But everybody was super friendly in China. I thought the cleanliness was an issue, but the food was incredible. Cleanliness was no different than China and than India in a way. Like the public restrooms. Have you guys seen? Has anyone ever been to a Chinese public restroom 25 years ago? I don't know if it's any different. I was at one in the Great Wall of China at Simeitai. I think it was called Simeitai. And we used the restroom, and it was the nastiest place in the world. It was all stone, and it was like medieval Europe. Your number two would drop into a vat down below, and it would sit there and rot. All right. Then we went there, and we spent the night there because our guide said we could do that. So we spent the night camping in one of the guards' chambers. It's 25 years ago. It's like, this is the wild wall. I don't think you can't do that now. And then when we came back, we had to go to use the restrooms, but we couldn't. You want to know why? Because they put diesel fuel in the restroom and they lit it on fire, and all that stuff was burning. All the smoke was coming out of it. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" He goes, "We're cleaning it out." And then after they burned it out, they washed it down with water, and it was good to go. That doesn't even make sense. The other ones were the squatters, where I would like, "Where are the doors?" No doors. You'd squat sideways, so you'd see dozens of people just squatting sideways, so you can't see, stuff. And every 30 seconds, it would flush, and all of it would depending on your position. If you're in the pole position, you don't get to see anything. But if you're downstream, everything starts rushing underneath you. All of this mountain of whatever they ate is like in this canal going underneath you. I'm not kidding. This is a culture shock. But I'm not thinking this is a bad thing. I said, this is awesome. This is China, man. This is such a different culture, and China is a different culture, and that's why some of these disagreements pop up. Doesn't make a lot of sense to us as Westerners, but China is such a radically different country. But I tell that story because it's the one that sticks in my head. But that and Coca-Cola tasted different in China. It tasted better, sweeter. I don't know. I love the jasmine tea culture. I had a thermos that I bought, and I would just get jasmine tea, this flour, and you put it in there. You can get hot water all over the place. If it's boiled, it's safe to drink. And I was a lot healthier traveling around China than I was probably traveling around the U.S. because you would just eat really well back then. I don't know about now. But the Chinese tourists coming to Japan and Japanese tourists coming to China is such an important thing to have this cultural flow of ideas. I really hope that they don't ratchet this down and make individual tourists stop. But if you look at Chinese social media, you'll see that it's really positive on Japan. Japan is beautiful, clean, aesthetic. It outperforms. This is the platform that drives the most travel interest, is the Zhaohongshu, or Red. This is the one that's driving it, and it is ultra positive on Japan. Ultra clean streets and kombini culture, soft. This is Japan's image of Japan. Soft aesthetic photos of Kyoto, Kamakura, Hokkaido. When people travel, they don't want to show you bad stuff. They're going to show you the beauty of it. Japan cafes, desserts, omiyage. Japan is so safe, I can walk alone at night. Everyday Japanese design, signage, packaging, trains, department stores, everything makes sense. The details in Japan are so touching. Why is even Japan's trash can so cute? Life in Japan is just so comfortable. These are the captions of Chinese social media. It's 85% positive, 10% neutral, and 5% political pushback is the sentiment on this. When political issues do arise, it's not about the government saying this. There's a couple of other platforms here. It's more or less like when Fukushima discharged some of the water, and there were some debates on this in the media. That did have an impact on tourism here just because of fear. Anytime you mention that kind of stuff, I think I can understand why people might not want to come. But the government really plays this up too much, I think. and it can be detrimental. But that's the way East Asia's political climate has always been. I've been here for a generation now, and I've seen the Japanese news for a very long time, and it's always been like this. It's always been like a tit for a tat. You know, overreactions on stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. But the personal opinions of the citizens has nothing to do with this political debate that's going back and forth. It is some sort of diplomatic, like win-lose and who's going to compromise the least and the most kind of a thing. But then in everyday lives of all of the people in China, Korea, Taiwan, and Japan, it really doesn't play much part in the decisions to travel to Japan, because when it comes to the cleanest, most delicious, most in tune to China, safest destination in the world for Chinese tourists, it's Japan. And I don't think that that's going to stop tourism from China. And I hope it doesn't, despite the fact that I think Chinese tourists have gotten a bad rap over the last decade. I think they're a lot, after this closing of the world, I think it's gotten a lot better. I think it's gotten a lot better. And a lot of people in the tourism industry in Japan have made that comment. Mainland China people have now experienced the world a lot more, have become better travelers. So that's it's a positive development. Let's take some questions here. Also regularly traveling between both countries, and there's a big increase in flight prices from China to Japan, and also a reduction in budget airlines to Japan from China. That's really interesting. I think when the government does have so much control over the transportation, it can really decrease the flow. So there are things that the government can do to try to hurt Japan. I think it's just tragic that would be the case, because the vast majority of Chinese have a very positive image about Japan. And I think every time that the government does something like this, it can backfire. To think that we think everybody agrees with the politics of their country all the time is a big mistake. I think the media might portray everybody who's in China to the West is being like lockstep with that. But a lot of people disagree. They just do it more silently. I love going to China. I love to visit the country. Whenever I go, I get excited because you get to eat a lot of really good food, and and the attractions are like the stone forest. I remember going to Lijiang in the provinces in China. It's just some stunning places. It's on a bigger scale than Japan, and that's what makes China so amazing. Everything is scaled up in China. It's just so big and massive. I think everybody should try to visit China at least once in their lives, not just to see the Great Wall of China, but also to see that massive scale. It's Asia at this massive scale. It's the terracotta warriors of Xi'an, and seeing the evolution of the big cities in China. I got video from 1998. Everyone was riding a bike in Beijing, and everybody. It was like very few cars, and they were rickety cars. After the Olympics was announced in 2001, China's pivot happened so quick. Now when I go to China, I can't recognize that China I went in 1988. I'm so lucky to have seen what China was like when it was all bicycles in Beijing. Oh my gosh, it was the greatest. That was the core of China, and I don't know. It's changed so rapidly now, for better or for worse. But the people, they still have their core values, and the vast majority of my friends, all of them, love Japan. So what's portrayed by this dispute is not really the reality of what's going on here. It's an important issue. Chinese Americans with lots of family in the motherland. Chinese culture is all over the place, because we have Chinatowns and Chinese citizens and residents in every single country. I think it's an important part of China's diplomacy as well. But and I say that because it's just sad that, to me, tourists from China are restricted because of political issues. I guess in the U.S. we have alerts and warnings, but usually it's for danger. But Japan is not a dangerous country except when there's a megaquake warning, or there's a volcano eruption, or an earthquake has just happened, or something like this. That's the only time Japan is a dangerous destination. Japan's never going to be a dangerous destination to visit. and for Chinese tourists. So the warnings are kind of skewed in such a way that it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Let's see, I'll take a couple more questions. Spent last Christmas in Shanghai last year, and I definitely want to come back. It's just the entry regulations and more annoying than Japan. It's a little bit harder. I don't even know if it's still valid. In 2018, I got a 10-year visa to go to China through a company that I was working with, and they set it up for me, and I'd be able to go and come back. I think sometimes I wonder if that visa is still good for Americans. I'd love to go back and take Kanai and Leo to go see our friends in China. Go do a little homestay and eat some home cooked food. Oh, the home cooked food there is really good too. But to go out and eat, it's just such a different country than it was 25 years ago when I went there. But yeah, Shanghai's great. You get the food all over the place. It's just, you can go around look. I wanted to make an episode connecting ramen from the motherland in China, and then seeing how ramen has changed in Japan. I think it would be amazing how Japan has changed the food that has come from China. But it's really hard to make such an episode. I guess you would need a journalistic visa. You'd want to do it right. I don't know too much about that. You'd need a lot of. I have a lot of friends in China that would be able to help me out with that. But currently traveling China, and the convenience of travel here is crazy. Visa entry for Australia, QR code payments, and great transport. Writes in Hugo. See, like, there you go. I think for some people it's really hard to get into China, but once you get in, the one thing about China that I really liked was that it is so embracive of technology. But I was also with a woman last time. When I went in 2017, I was with a woman from Hong Kong. We were on a job. We were filming in Guangzhou, I think, near Shenzhen. I had a job to do, or at least I think it was, and to make some kind of a shoot. I was consulting for them, and I crossed the border into Hong Kong, and we had to stay at a hotel. And the hotel said that they had to take our picture for the police or something, and like I don't understand what's happening. So, I take my picture. I try to do that one you remember with Kramer, where he was taking the picture of the mole because George's boss, something with George's boss at that company that kept losing money. Remember the one with the Sanders, and he did the picture of the. So I always do that smile when they make you take a picture for some ridiculous thing. At least, maybe it'll give. They don't tell me not to do that. You can smile. It totally messes things up. But she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't take the picture. But she's from Hong Kong. She's European descent, living in Hong Kong. She wouldn't take the picture. I kept saying, "Why are you arguing with this? It's for the police. They can come and get you." And she said, I'm not doing it. If you do it, then it's over. They got you. I was like, they got you? What do you mean? So I thought maybe this is a little bit over the top. I still to this point don't understand. And they have my picture anyway. It's probably for my passport. But there was a lot of pushback in it. And the facial recognition stuff is something that's concerning to some Americans. But I think it's like no photo, but every foreigner hotel guest must legally register with the Public Security Bureau. Yeah. Some of the places required photos back then. Maybe they don't do it now, or maybe they already have your photo, but they can pretty much, with cameras on the street, be able to find you. So that's something that is of concern. But I don't think they're plucking tourists off the street, like that, if you go to visit China. I think for most people, China would be considered less safe than Japan, for example. But I do think that everybody, especially Americans, should go and visit China because it is an extraordinary country of a different scale. The technology, it's like everybody says Japan's living in 2050. I think China's living in 2050, but it's a Chinese version of 2050, and it's quite unique and quite interesting to see, even when it was the last time I went before the pandemic. So, any last questions here? Nearly every crime in Japan is solved because of cameras. There are a lot of cameras everywhere, and they do utilize those cameras. I wish they'd solved where my iPhone went. We could have solved that crime, but the police didn't see it worthy enough to take that crime up. So they only take the crimes that I think that they can solve. but the apartment that I live in, the security camera footage is only good for 2 weeks. And by that, and it took 2 weeks to get the permit to get that as a security footage. And by that time, it was gone. Insurance finally paid for it after almost a year. My credit card eventually. I bought it on my credit card, and they eventually gave me the money. They said, "Oh, you have a police report. You didn't tell us that." I said, "Yes, I did." Nevertheless, I'm curious what are Japanese thoughts on Chinese tourists. Japanese thoughts on Chinese tourists? I think that's actually a pretty good question here. The Chinese Japanese would be like Chinese American, right? We wouldn't say that. We would say, I think if you're Japanese, you're Japanese, and if you're Chinese, you're Chinese. I know I've got friends that are Korean, but they were born in Japan, but they still have Korean passports. So this is like a weird East Asian thing. I don't agree with it, but I think if you're born in Japan and you're grown up in Japan, you are Japanese, or at least you should be able to get a Japanese passport. But it's still a blood thing with some things. I hope they get rid of that someday, but maybe they have. But I think that 10 years ago, this was a big issue. Like, we would see people hanging up their laundry in the airports. They'd wash their underwear in the sink at the airport, and they'd hang it up on the seats in the airport, not even thinking that this was somewhat socially unacceptable for international travel. We saw a lot of people, they take off their shoes and put their feet up on things, and it's like kind of nasty. You wouldn't do that. Maybe you'd do that in the countryside in China, but I think even out in the countryside in China, maybe through education, manners have changed a little bit. It's starting to go in that way, more international standard. The tourists that can now afford, and as we had a viewer point in here, that the flights coming from China is quite expensive now. Prices have gone up. I don't think a lot of mainland tourists can travel as freely, and they are picking Japan because it is a little bit of a cheaper destination. But I hope that the Chinese economy continues to do well enough that the tourists can come as well to Japan. But I haven't heard any complaints recently. It's been quite quiet. Most of the rude behavior is coming from Westerners that I'm getting. It's funny. There was a Malaysian couple that was busted for graffitiing the bamboo garden, the bamboo forest in Kyoto's Arashiyama district. They're from Malaysia, but a lot of the Westerners coming here for TikTok videos and stuff, they're the ones that are getting the most news here and causing the most problems. It's not tourists from China. And usually the ones on the bus tours, they're all pretty much kept to the bus and to the hotels that cater to them. We don't really see a lot of issues. I think Chinese tourists that now have traveled and it's been a prosperous country enough that the tourists have gotten a lot better. And you know what? I think this is my feeling. I think other Chinese tourists are policing the Chinese tourists. So when a Chinese tourist is doing something wrong, I think other Chinese tourists are kind of policing this. And I think Chinese social media also has been playing a pretty big part in this too. I'm sure when stuff is done bad, they might share that on social media. And Chinese netizens are quite vocal as well when something happens. But tourists from China are some of the most entitled. I would say there are people from every country that feel entitled when they travel abroad. I'd say that there's a lot of Westerners, my countrymen, for example, a lot of them will feel, there's a lot of Karens in my countrymen that come here and feel like they have, that their constitutional rights extend to Japan, for example, and freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom. It does not. You're in Japan. You're not entitled to the same. I think the State Department has it on the website as well, which you should probably adhere to or check out before you travel internationally. But a lot of people started to travel internationally after the pandemic. A lot of people were traveling internationally for the first time in 2017, 18, 19. Flights had gotten cheaper. The ability to travel abroad Social media has taken the stigma of danger out of traveling abroad. So more people are traveling abroad that have never traveled before. And that's created a lot of these issues where an American who has never traveled outside of America, it's such a big country with so many attractions. You don't need to go outside of Hawaii to go to a tropical location, or Florida for that matter. You didn't need to go to Thailand. You could go to Hawaii, right? You didn't need to go to Tokyo Disneyland. You could go to Disney World. It's even bigger. You didn't need to go to the beautiful canyons of China. They do have some great ones. You go to the Grand Canyon because they had it bigger and better in the U.S. But Americans wanted to travel more abroad, and that has led to some educational experiences where people learn that their amendment rights do not extend to Japan. It's interesting. But Chinese as well, a lot of them have not traveled abroad, and they don't understand that their rights also extend to the country that they visit. So Japanese rules are quite strict, but it seems to take a lot before you get arrested in Japan. They don't need to go anywhere. Nobody likes them. I don't know who you're talking about, but maybe that's the case. When I was in Japan, I got mistaken for a Japanese tour bus driver and also a tour guide. That's twice. Jonathan. Yeah, I think there's these stereotypes and stuff. When Kanai goes to New York, people were saying ni hao to her because everyone thought she was Chinese because she looked Asian. So I mean, like, that's just part of it. You have to have a little bit of tolerance when you're traveling, but you can have some fun with that if you pretend to be the tour guide a little bit. You might as well have some fun with that. But I think in general, though, and this is what it boils down to. I think that's the final message here. We have the different social medias in China, and they are portraying this in different ways. But the vast majority of Chinese social media is positive on Japan, and this dispute is inevitably going to go away. But it makes a lot of sense for the prime minister to do what's in the interest of the people that it represents, and not that of the people that it doesn't. The biggest issue, I think, is that there's a huge, well, I don't know if that's an issue. There's a lot of tourists coming from Taiwan. And I love the tourists that come from Taiwan. They're some of the best. They speak Chinese. They get mixed up with the mainland Chinese tourists sometimes because they're speaking Chinese. There's a huge affinity between Japan and Taiwan. They're both island nations as well. A lot of Taiwanese tourists, some of the friendliest that I've met as well. A lot of them are eating. They go on these trips. A lot of them go to Shikoku for the noodles. I was surprised that Taiwan had direct flights to Ehime and oh gosh, why is it? I got all these places are jumbled up in my head. To Ehime and Takamatsu. Direct flights to Takamatsu. I'm like, for what? Oh, because of Sanuki Udon. Because people like to go there to eat, and it's a really easy flight from Taipei. So there's a big affinity to that. So I think it's hard for Japan to be in the middle of this and be completely on the side of China. But this is a thing for the diplomats to work out. But for everyday people, doesn't matter. Americans are surprisingly some of the best behaved tourists in Asia. Some. Many. Depends. Are they TikTokers and YouTubers? But there's a lot of really good tourists, though. Some of the friendliest have been from the United States as well. So, I mean, you can't really knock it. Some of the friendliest tourists I've met, Philippines and Thailand. Biggest smiles, always friendly. Every time I meet a viewer from the Philippines, big smile, and it feels like I know them, and it's like I'm with family instantly. It's I don't know what it is. It's just some of the most incredible thing. You meet somebody from the Philippines visiting Japan who watches the show, biggest smile, amazing warmth. Please come to visit us in Manila. Like, people giving me their home addresses sometimes. Like, it's the amazing amount of warmth from everyone in the Philippines. So Taipei has direct flights to there. It's crazy, right? Gaming Nights writes it here. Yeah. So there's a big affinity with Taiwan. And I think for Takaichi-san and Japan, like what is in the interest of Japan? Is it just for trade and the one China policy, which I think makes a lot of sense. You don't want to lose business with China, but you also have to do what's in the best interest of the Japanese people in general. Maybe that's it. I don't really know. I don't want to be the prime minister of Japan. But this dispute, this boil up, will eventually go away. And when it does, tourism will come back and we won't be talking about it again. But the news is really playing this up in Japan. And I don't think it's as big of an issue. I think it's a big diplomatic issue. But as I just showed you, if you look at Chinese social media, it's like 95% positive on Japan, which is incredible. Vic is in the house. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, very good. Do you mean they're well behaved, but despite they're absolutely loud? Okay. Yeah, some tourists, everybody's gonna bring their own culture here. Like, I'm a little bit loud sometimes, and I can read the room and I can see the people's faces around me, and I know when to tone it down a little bit. But I think for people coming from abroad, people think about themselves more than and don't really are in touch with their surroundings so much. I think that's the thing that comes to you when you lived in Japan for 10 years. I'm just saying this as a general guide. You start to be more aware of your surroundings in general and the people around you, because that's society and you can feel the society around you, and you're like, I guess it's the force, right? The force is always with you and it's always watching you. The force can be a bad thing and weigh down on you, and the force can be a great thing because it's working together with you to make it a peaceful place. You don't have to tell everybody to do something. They know not to do it in Japan. You don't have to tell people don't do it because they know don't do it. That's what I love about Japan. But that force can really come down to you in another way and really force you down in society where you don't do anything at all. So that could be an issue as well. Are Chinese mainlanders allowed to be a tourist without a chaperone tour group? Yes. Tourists from mainland China can get a visa to visit Japan, just like Japanese can get a visa to visit China, and they don't have to be on a tour. I think there's a lot of independent Chinese tourists that are used to visiting. I think if you took a tour group from China one time, you're probably going to come back to visit the places that you liked as an individual with your family. It's not that hard to book a hotel and to stay. I meet tourists from mainland China all around my neighborhood that are in these black market Airbnbs that are listed on Chinese websites, but they're not listed on Japanese websites. It's like black accommodations. I'm like, why? I live in a residential neighborhood. Why are there people around here? There's no real hotel. Why is that person coming out of that doorway with suitcases and a family with suitcases? There's some sort of a weird Chinese Airbnb apparently that's under the radar in Japan. They'll probably crack down on that, but I talk to those people too. I said, where are you from? I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm from, mainland China. I'm from China. I'm from Shenzhen, or I'm from, Chengdu, or I'm from Xi'an. It's like, well, that's awesome. I'm from Beijing. It's like, how long are you staying in Japan for, and all this stuff. And so, where'd you stay in there? Oh, yeah, I got it from a Chinese site. It's really nice. It's like, okay. They didn't know it's like a black site. But they're just normal tourists from from China now. I wouldn't say that they're bad or poorly behaved. They're just regular tourists now. The boom's going to continue, despite the fact that some of the tourist stuff has stopped. I've been called Chinese, Korean, Filipino, right since yeah. I've been considered Italian, Mexican, Ralph Macchio. I don't know what he is. I guess Italian American. I've been considered Greek. I've been considered almost everything except Indian, which is weird. Thai. Somebody asked me if I was Thai. So I mean, it's a lot more fun if people aren't sure, because then I could play up either side. But yes, I bet we've been called a lot of stuff. You just play, you go with it. Kanai's been called Korean and Chinese as well, and you can play it up and just go, "That's right, ni hao." You know, you just play back with it and have some fun. But yeah, I can see, you know, I could be Italian, I guess, perhaps. You know, I don't see that as an insult. I see that as a compliment, I suppose. But that would make me 100% American, pretty much. Um, let's see here. I heard that the Chinese live there without me. So China is an important demographic group for tourism here in Japan, and I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon. More than the government saying don't go, and this is a true story here. More than the government saying don't go, rumors of a mega quake is much more damaging. Again, people think about their personal safety. They know that Japan's a safe place, but since the megaquake is over, the anime prophecy is over. Now, if the government were to make another prophecy like that, saying it's an anime prophecy, that would have more damage than to say that when the government tells you to do it, people are a little bit susceptible when they see the social media posts of the people here, and it's perfectly safe. So that's what I'm trying to say here. The Chinese social media versus some of the stance, it might be a political play, but I do hope that the free exchange of tourism between the two countries can continue, because I love going to China, and I love seeing Chinese tourists come here and experience Japan as they're getting better as tourists, as their reputation was not glowing. Chinese have been visiting and living in Japan all the way back to the Nara period and earlier. Very much the truth. Soy sauce came in here through Wakayama hundreds of years, centuries ago, and it didn't proliferate into Japan until around the mid 1800s. And then after that, that's when soy sauce became mainstream, but it didn't come from Japan. It came from China. Ramen, China. The language, kanji, China. So there's a great connection and love in that respect, intertwined with China, the motherland. It's the seat of culture over there. A lot of it came over to Japan. So I think that these rifts are inevitable. They happen. But I really hope like we get back to just somehow being friends without trying to fight over it, and not the government sending warships or Coast Guard through Japanese waters between Hokkaido and Honshu Island. That was crazy about 3 weeks ago. So that's more damaging. But Japan didn't say don't go to China. You know what I mean? Japan didn't say, all right, all Japanese tourists stop going to China. We didn't get that. So it was really, really odd over this comment that it's like, okay, we're gonna hurt you economically with tourism. I thought that was kind of, that might have the opposite effect. Like telling somebody not to do something usually makes people want to do it more. Right? All right, guys, that's all I have for you. I wanted to talk tomorrow about this. I thought these were banned in Japan. I really thought that these were banned in Japan because of the food colorings and some of the ingredients. Somebody told me Reese's peanut butter cups were banned because they put something in the chocolate or the peanut butter that was banned in Japan. So I want to talk about, right? I thought they were banned, right, Gilbert? Right? I found Skittles. And they're Japanese Skittles. Look, Skittle original. All the ingredients. There's no sticker on it. It's not an imported good. There's no sticker on it. So I'm going to read the ingredients to you tomorrow, and we're going to talk about this because I think that this is a. I was researching this. This is from Mars, Japan. It's fascinating story. I thought that like you could only get these at like the Sony Plaza or something, but. I'll talk about it tomorrow, but Japanese junk food in I think about 3 years is going to be worse than American junk food, which is crazy, because I don't know what I discovered researching this and looking at the ingredients kind of surprised me. So maybe I'll talk about this tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. I think it's good to go outside if the weather's nice. I'll be in Kyoto on Thursday, by the way. Thursday and Friday I'm in Kyoto. So get prepared for some live streams in Kyoto. If you're in Kyoto, maybe you'll be able to find me. But I'll be in Kyoto on Thursday, Friday, and back in Tokyo on the weekend. So Make sure you subscribe as I take you on some adventures outside of the city of Tokyo. But until then, be rest at ease that tourism from China to Japan, for the vast majority of you, the media is overhyping this, and I'm all over it. I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. All right, take care. Thanks, Ramsey Silent and our moderators, and I'll see you tomorrow. Matane.